Then, as a counteroffensive, he created the Moorish Science Temple. Right? Because he got to fight conjure magic with conjure magic. Right? All of the chiefs know that back then. It's common knowledge, just like it's common knowledge that Tupac was a rapper. Same type of common knowledge.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. And then, so because that goes back to, especially when you talk about the technology for the flying saucers, the technology for the crafts that the Nazis and Hitler and all them had access to. Now, when we get into this part of the conversation, because we about to go ahead and start, raising the altitude. When we get into that part of the conversation, where does the correlation and the connection of the Nazi Germany's, society in regards to like extraterrestrial technology and crafts, but then how does that tie into why Antarctica is so?
One of the things they discovered in theosophy is something called the Mahatmas. These were monks that kept ancient scrolls in the mountains of Tibet. So he sent a guy named Heinrich Himmler on an expedition to recover the scrolls. And they got a secret portion of scroll from the chapters of a text called the Vimana Sutra. The Vimana Sutra teaches you or gives you the blueprints to create anti-gravity flying apparatus. So they get a head start. They used modernization to try to update all of the graphics and update the technology that was being used so that they can make the craft more efficient. So those were the projects Hitler had them working on, right? And once they made contact with extraterrestrials, the game plan now has to take a drastic shift. On chess, that's called castle.
Yeah, that's deep. So what is the significance to that whole, the Nazi movement and all that with Antarctica? Because I know they have the poles blocked off and all that. What's the significance in that, and why is that?
Because when Adolf Hitler got a hold of the ancient world map, he found a place called Tartarus. And this is why everybody keeps saying Tartaria. But the place is Tartarus. It's spoke about also in the book of Enoch. And this is the land that was under the ice in Antarctica. They had already received the reports from Admiral Richard E. Byrd about his experiences in Antarctica. That was way before World War II.
Yeah.
So once they
30s, when was that?
1927. I think it was 1927 or something like that.
Because he was flying over either the North or the South Pole, and he ended up flying into the inner Earth.
That's when he flew over the North Pole, when he flew into the inner Earth.
Gotcha.
When he flew to Antarctica, he talked about the unexplored lands that he's seen. Antarctica under the ice is probably big as North America. Or bigger.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why when people see the ice shelf, they think it's a wall. Right? But it's not a wall, it's a shelf. If you see it from the top, you will understand what I'm telling you. You can see all of the ancient structures starting to melt through the ice, thanks to the return of the sun cycle. The sun cycle is going to thaw Antarctica out. We got cryogenics and cryostasis from telepathic communication with people that was frozen under the ice to tell them how to thaw them out without killing them.
Oh boy.
Look, they try to tell us that they brought them from Africa. and set them loose in Antarctica, and they thrived. And they called them the Bashinga tribe. They was already under the ice. They thawed them people out. Based on telepathic instructions, the Nazis was the first to have a base in direct contact with the people in the ice. Right? One of the things that they was experimenting on is genetics. We got to remember, Adolf Hitler sent Benito Mussolini into Egypt. What was they looking for? Akhenaten. Akhenaten was the last great pharaoh that changed the paradigm from polytheism to monotheism. But it was a paradigm shift that was earth-shaking for the times. So they wanted somebody with the same capabilities, so they started a genetic breeding program called Boys from Brazil. They even made a movie about it. So while they was down there, they say that they was cloning Adolf Hitler. They wasn't cloning Adolf Hitler. They was cloning Akhenaten. And they was cloning them in a batch of 50. And they was always experimenting on them. And they was dying in the experiments until they got down to about 10 of them. And then they gave us one of them. And they told us his name was Barack Obama. But his name is Barry Soetoro. Born in Kenya, the land of the jackal. Rosemary's Baby. Damien. Right? So when we was looking for the Antichrist, he rose right in our face and we was too blind to see it.
Listen, okay. So now you went devil's advocate. Can you kind of tie that into how real the devil's advocate was? The symbolism in that movie and everything that was talked about?
Yeah, the devil's advocate with Al Pacino.
Yes. They broke down
so you got to remember that term devil's advocate is a lawyer in England. In England, the lawyer is called a devil's advocate. Devil mean enemy.
Yes.
Get the spookism out of it. The devil mean enemy.
Yep.
Right? So your personal devil is your personal enemy. You can have devils in your life as angels in other people's. The gift and the curse. It cut both ways. So when the people begin to realize that everything is shifting, then we can get in alignment with the shift. But it all traces back to that same matriarchal energy.
Sure. Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. So now, because a lot of this, what you're talking about now, that brings us up to what's happening in real time. Kind of like when we see the parallels and the symbolism in the show Supercell, right? You had a chance to check out Supercell?
The show Supercell is about the people with sickle cell anemia.
Right. Now,
so we are in the process of shifting in our genetic upgrade from a carbon-based entity to a crystal-based entity. When the defense mechanism for malaria that was dumped on them by Enlil, Enki genetically engineered them to defend themselves with the sickling of the cell from the malaria. Right? So they also have a program in their DNA that when the solar flash hit and the earth sent out the pulse and we go crystalline DNA and all of the frauds is shut off, then they're going to have special abilities, but I don't know what they're going to be, but they're going to have special abilities because of the sickle cell trait. like X-Men and shit. But I don't know what their ability's gonna be, but they gonna have something extra.
Oh, they're gonna be powerful. We had shout out to Wu Now. She was talking about it on here a few episodes ago about like the different powers that we're gonna be seeing. And how does that tie into the solar flare? Because there's a lot going on with our sun right now with the solar flares and the holes in the sun.
The only time the genetics change in nature is when the solar flare sends out a radiation blast. The radiation blast causes the DNA to change. What we're looking at with the Schumann resonance spiking like it is, in the storms coming from the sun, they're talking to each other. And the Mother Earth is going to have to get rid of the parasites. So if we are in alignment with it, while this energy is doing this exchange, the DNA is crystalline, developing, and it has to upgrade with the solar flare. When the solar flare hit, it's going to go to the core of the Earth, and the core of the Earth is going to send out a Schumann response based on the solar flare. And it's going to send off a strong and powerful frequency blast. And the ones that don't belong here, you're going to know it because they're going to be talking about sirens is playing in their head, and they're going to be dropping to their knees and bleeding out their ears and other orifices as well. All of those are things, parasitic things that don't belong, that's masquerading as human.
That's deep. That's real deep because I was talking about the symbolism in regards to a lot of the like the neutrinos and the protons, electrons, how all that stuff ties into the resonance and the frequencies that we're talking about in all the different atmospheres above the planet, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to that, it's almost like, to me, like it's like a cutoff switch where you kind of say if you're using Wi-Fi and you walk too far away from your modem or your router or whatever, and then boom, the phone dead. Like you can't do nothing with it no more because you don't have access anymore. So is that what's going to happen with these beings and these parasites once these flares start to hit?
Then they're gonna be bugging the fuck out. They're gonna be crashing. They're gonna be crashing head first into cars and shit.
So it's gonna be like a real malfunction, like a real system malfunction.
You're gonna see them break down. When that burst go off, a lot of them just gonna drop dead where they at. But they can't resist the frequency. But some of them that's a little higher vibratory gonna have it worse. Because they can endure it longer.
Yeah, that's deep.
So they're the ones gonna be trying to fight it, and that's when they're gonna be start having vessels and shit popping in their eyes and ears and shit.
That's deep. You know what that? What this kind of reminds me of, right? Have you ever seen that movie, The Immortals?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie. That's a dope movie. There's a whole lot of symbolism. That reminds me of like the X-Men Apocalypse movie with the symbolism that's in that movie, The Immortals. So
they're talking about the Orisha.
There you go.
The Orisha was the original immortals of the earth. They was also represented as the Titans. The Titans was the Orisha. This is why they don't want us using voodoo magic, because it relies on different aspects of understanding of the Orisha. The hoodoo. That was our defense. So they villainized it so that we wouldn't go to where our greatest power lie in order to fight their conjure magic back. So you know what I decided to do? Fight their ass with voodoo.
Yes, sir.
And it been working. Ain't failed me yet. Black girl magic on every damn thing I do.
All day, every day. Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Yeah. Nah, this is that's real.
You know what they traditionally call African spirituality is actually tribal spirituality, and it's the same thing expressed all over the world among the tribes naturally in their natural habitat before colonizers come and Christianize and Mohammedize them and institutionalize them to a foreign culture. right? So the culture gonna always be there. And if we understand what we lost, we can go study Africa to figure some of it out. We can go study Asia to figure some of it out. Studying the indigenous cultures, studying Australian indigenous cultures, Maori indigenous cultures, Hawaiian indigenous cultures. All of the cultures that was there before the colonizers is a central theme that tells you who the rightful heirs is to take care of the local land. You're exactly where you're supposed to be on your land. Because in this life, that's where your birthright dropped you. Your right of birth, the land you landed on. But they told you you landed in the sea. Admiralty jurisdiction.
That's deep. Oof, that's real deep. Man, oh man, oh man. So now in the like where we're going. So now to go back to Immortals in that movie, and this is something that I love, and I'm pretty sure let me ask you this before I ask you this question. I'm pretty sure you probably read it, but have you ever read the book what's the name of it? It's about the young boy who was he was like in the desert, and his journey was to find his destiny. I cannot think of the name of the book. It was a damn good book, man. It's a self-help book and it's a personal development book, but it was about a story about a boy. I can't think of the name of it, but it reminds me of Immortals. And I'll remember, I'll get the name of that book. But anyways, he always had the guidance and the assistance of like an elder or like a wise man, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like the astrological aspects of the Jesus story with the baby in the manger type thing, where the stars, the wise men were always watching over him. So in Immortals, what would that character symbolize, or who would that character symbolize? The elder, the old man that was watching over Theseus throughout the whole entire movie, when he was just like the old, old bummy, old hag type character, but he actually was a god that was watching over Theseus to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, he was able to kind of tap into, almost like going from Simba into Mufasa, the Asar and drama.
So the blueprint of the holy drama is the math that tells the rightful heir how to properly ascend the throne and who currently is displacing him from his royal seat. This is the mythology of Set versus Osiris. The brothers fight, and Set designs a coffin for Osiris and puts it in and locks him in it and kill him. So then he scared he's going to resurrect, so he go chop him up into pieces and spread him along the Nile. So the Easter egg hunt, because the Ishtar, Isis, had the babies help her find the remains of Osiris, and they used the Heka magic that they learned from Tahuti. And so once she brings Osiris pieces together, his phallus is missing. So she decides to absorb his essence, his DNA code, which is already in her, and use it to spontaneously create a son, right? So she's using the blueprint of Osiris, the father, in order to generate a carbon copy of the father in Horus, the son, who's going to avenge his father from his uncle Set and retake the throne, right? It's a math problem, but you will never see it as a conceptual physics problem until you become turned on as the rightful heir to unravel how to reascend to the throne.
That's deep. Yeah, man, that's deep. That's real deep. And you know what? It also triggers something in me too, to think about the mothers and how, the symbolism that we see is being shown right before our very eyes at all times. So now, if you remember in the movie Immortals, there was a part where Theseus had to go into like this monastery or like this monk, type place where they was hiding out. And the only way for him to be able to access the true, Ashe, or the true power, he had to get with the females, the feminine energy. So to me, that would be symbolism to the female natures, but also of like the Aj. To me, that would be like the symbolism of the Iyami or the Aj from
So
E5,
you
correct?
remember earlier when I told you I got 7 godmothers named Mary,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they are the ones that anoints the sun. If you look on the hieroglyphic wall, you will see a procession of women, and they'll have a vase in their hand, and the one that's standing before the child will be pouring the vase across his head. She's anointing him. That's what anointing means. And once he's anointed by the 7 sisters, that's when they turn on what's called the Pleiadian light, which is the ability to access your pineal gland and turns on your third eye. So they are calling on the forces of the ancestors to speak through this child. And the ancestors has to study the problem. So the child has to go through a life where the problem is constantly part of his reality until he can figure out the solution to deliver to the people in order to free them from the tyranny of oppression.
Yeah. Ooh, that's deep. That's real deep. I love it. Oh
That's the
man.
purpose of the Redeemer, though.
Yeah.
The Redeemer's job is to redeem the lost sheep, right? In order for them to receive their due inheritance.
Mm.
Right? So you go back to the book of Ruth. Ruth decided to be patient and wait for the Redeemer to come before she would leave. And before she would leave her mother-in-law, who she was taking care of, who she didn't have to, who told her, go about your business like Orpha. Big fat funky Oprah. Who turned your back on your sisters in order to defect from the Delta, the Mississippi Delta, your roots.
That's deep. And shout out to Akeelia Wright. She sent me, that was The Alchemist. That's the book I was trying. I can't remember. I was trying to look at it on my phone to find it in my library. But yeah, The Alchemist. So that kind of what we're talking about kind of reminds me of The Alchemist. Have you read that book?
I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's a good read. You'll like that one. It's a dope book. Real dope book. But okay, so now when it comes to where we are now, all right. When we talk about the mothers, and clearly everybody knows this is a mother's house, a matriarchal house. Isis, Set, when you see her in the hieroglyphs and the pyramids, a lot of times you'll see her with her arms extended and you see the wings, like, or even if she's like has them, down by her side, you see the wings. Can you kind of share what the wings symbolize in regards to this thing we call flight? In regards to, and also how that kind of connects to the sun when you talk about the sun. And
you got first thing you got to realize is the reason she got feathers on is because that's Mesoamerican culture. What we call Olmec, Inca, Aztec, old Mississippians. It's Mesoamerican culture. It's the same thing that you see when you see the tribes dressing up with the feathers on, with the wings. They're imitating the ceremonial dress of Tahuti. This Tahuti land over here, right? So as the land of Tahuti, all of the tribes call him the Great Father. This is the Great Osirian. But in Africa, they refer to the Great Osirian as Enki. So you got two distinct, different patriarchal lines influencing two different continents. That's the first thing you got to understand about seeing her with her wings spread. In his symbolism is the full aura, right? Because when the aura is fully illuminated and you can see the aura, sometimes when people stretch their arms out like that, it gives the appearance that they have wings made of light. So the ancestors have to remind you of that. So they create what's called archetype artistic expression. So they put the wings on the pottery so that you will remember that spiritually you have wings. Right now, the technological wing disc, right, is the symbol for the fleet of the sky. The fleet of the sky was under the command of Enlil, which translates into English as Lord of the Sky or Lord of the Rumbling Voice. Right? So when we're looking at the symbols, not until we know the origin of the symbol and what it means in its origin, will we know the truth of the matter of what they concealing from us in our face, behind our back. Using symbols to talk above our concept or understanding.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. Not because, yeah. Oh man. Okay. So let me ask you this, because this has been a hot topic and a hot debate on the channel since our first interview. Where did human life begin from your perspective? Because some people have seen disagreements. Some people saying America, we was here first. Some people saying Africa, we was there first. Can you kind of break down from your research and your studies which one you feel like was the origin or birthplace of humanity?
So the outer Africa theory is predicated on Lucy being the oldest recovered hominid, bipedal hominid, ever discovered at 3.5 million years old. The problem with that is the species of hominid that Lucy was is called proconsul. Proconsul was not a human. It was a chimpanzee. So the out of Africa theory ties in and was influenced by the philosophy of Charles Darwin's evolutionary theory that has never been proven. It's debatable. That's why it's still a theory. But the reality of it is all humans is made of the carbon base of corn. Scientists already have went through this research. The only place that you find corn originally was the Americas. Corn was exported to the world from America, and that's why the Corn Festival was one of the most sacred festivals we had that drew tribes all the way to what we call today the Aztec temples from both North and South America for the Great Corn Festival. This is why you have these so many different types of corn, but you only know about the Oshun corn, the yellow corn. But the corn is the carbon that made up the human. And if you look at it, you got so many different colors of corn, right? So the breeding or the laboratories that have all of the genetic profiles in phenotype is in Teotihuacan, in the temples, on the walls. So the human was created quintessentially in the Americas and exported to the rest of the world. Now you could say we was all at Pangea at the time, right? Because when they say something is pagan, they say it's Pangean. That means it go back to the earliest days of Atlantean civilization.
That's deep. That's real deep. That's real deep.
So remember, Tartaria is Tartarus, and Tartarus is the land that's under the ice in Antarctica.
That's deep.
Atlantis was the Americas as the capital of Atlantis with the original temple of Isis. The waters used to, in the night sky under the little moon before they parked Luna out here, used to shine and glisten in the night sky. And it used to look like she was surrounded by glistening, flowing rivers of metal because of the fluorescent nature of the black moon. It's like having a black light in the club.
Ooh, that's deep. Listen, let me jump in real quick because we moving now, family. Y'all buckle up, Buttercup, because we moving now. So, how does that relate to the aurora borealis and how that glistens, at the poles?
So that comes from a refraction of light as it radiates off the gases. Or you ever be driving down the street and you see that wave of heat coming up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like that, but it's in the atmosphere. And it's composed of gases. The same way that wave is composed of gases being released from the earth. And the refraction of the light going through the gases gives us the luminosity that gives us that effect of the aurora borealis, the northern lights or the southern lights. Now, when the solar flares get intense, the ends of the aurora borealis moves further south from the North Pole, and the southern lights move further north from the South Pole. It's showing you the impact of the solar energy radiation that's coming in, because it's making the heat up faster, that's covering more spectrum of light across a broader surface area.
Ooh, that's deep. That's real deep. Now, I remember last week when you was on, you had a dope emblem. I was looking at it in the replay. I couldn't really see it while we was on the live, but I saw it in the replay, and I think I got an idea of what that means or is symbolic to. But before we go into that, can you kind of share
this one?
Yeah, nope. Well, let me see. Can you move it a little bit more to your right? But okay, yeah, it was that one. I didn't see the full. See, I didn't see the headdress. All I saw was the face. Can you kind of share what that symbol, what that means, what that's symbolic for?
That's a full bonnet, full feathered, full bonnet war chief. Chief Pontiac is a war chief. Ottawa. I'm an old Mississippian with the oldest rank, so by my old ass being